Hello everyone, Barada Guitars here again, and in today's video we're gonna continue our open source tele build. In the last video we did CNC machine the body, the neck, and the fretboard, and in this video I'm gonna take you through every step of finishing a guitar body like boss. And for finishing the guitar, I choose to have the most difficult finish that you can have, which will be dyeing the top and getting a solid color on the back, and starting with rounding over the body, sanding everything, and getting the body ready for getting the finish. So starting now with rounding over all the sides. Of course, with the neck, I don't round it, I just let it and then continue with 120 grit sandpaper. I normally start sanding with 80 grit, but in my case, I'm gonna start with 120 grit because I did this whole build using my CNC machine, so I'm not having any deep scratches from the router bits as I get normally sometimes, and I'm fine sanding the face and the surface of the body and the back with 240 grit, and then I'm gonna continue later on after I mark the blade and the holes for the neck. By the way, this neck plate is laser carved. I will let the link down below in the description box so you can order it if you want. Here you can see my FAMAC first bed set from 15 to 35mm. This company and those guys are known by their quality, the best quality in Germany and almost worldwide. They bring you so much features that you will never look back whenever you're gonna go with this first bed. You can try them or ask anybody who have tried this. You're gonna be on a next level of drilling holes in expensive wood that you don't want to destroy. Even the wood chips that you're gonna get from this first bed, they gonna look differently. Moving on to the normal drill, here you can see a comparison side to side to a normal, what we call it random drill bit. You can see how shiny the FAMAC bit is. You can see even inside and how the curve is much more tighter, which will help to remove the sawdust from inside the hole faster. You can see those small heads that will cut around the hole and prevent you from having any tear out in the wood. Anyway, these bits are really well designed and well engineered, and I will let the link down below in the description box so you can check them and order the bits that you want for your work. Now for drilling the holes, here I'm gonna use my Optimum D23 Pro. It's my drill press that I use normally. If you wanna see some exclusive things, you can just follow me on Instagram, see some real stories and some bosses before I upload them here in YouTube. So you're gonna follow the process of making some guitar build before I upload them to YouTube. Here, as I said, it's not step-by-step build. As I said, if you want to see step-by-step build, you just click on the channel. There is 2 builds where I build guitars from scratch. Here I just finishing up with installing the truss rod, putting some silicone underneath that truss rod to prevent any vibration in the future. And of course, I will do a match headstock veneer over the headstock of my neck, so the body and the neck headstock can be matched and they will look similar when I put some dyes on them, so I won't have a different neck and body. I always love this thing, but this up to you guys. If you want to do this, you can do it. If you don't want, you can't, but I have the tools, I have the wood for that, so why not? Now for reducing the thickness, I will use my Tornado from Fraser bit. It's a flattening bit that I showed in the last part with my Mechanica Evo M to reduce the thickness from 6mm to 1.3mm, and I'm gonna use another black veneer underneath it, and I will end up with 2 extra millimeter on the headstock, which is the things that I planned to do from the beginning, and I will have at the end match headstock with that top that I glued on the body. Now just quick info for you guys, whenever you use a colored veneer in guitar build or an instrument build, you have to have it stabilized. This means the color should not be just on the surface, but it should be also inside the veneer. So when you sand the veneer or when you router it, you have to have the color inside it and in the whole thickness of the veneer. Otherwise, you will end up with the original color of the veneer and the whole build will get messed up. Now in this shot you can see how nice this touch was by adding this veneer. It's a very fine black line, finishing up the whole neck with doing some fine sanding with 240 sandpaper, and here we can get everything ready for finishing. Now at this point you should cover everything that you don't want to bend it. So I covered the matched headstock and the fretboard. And at this time my package just arrived on time. This is from Naturelac. For the people that are not familiar with my channel, every guitar build that I did that has a solid color, I did finish it with Naturelac products. I use them as a premiere, as a solid colors and some relic effects that you want to relic guitars, for example, or instruments. They are professional and they just focused on doing instrument finishes. Now, of course, you don't need all these products to do this finish. You just need some cans. Here I have some solid colors and some premieres, and of course having a glossy or matte finish as you like. In my case, I'm gonna use a glossy finish just to show you the quality of this product for presentations purposes. Some polishing pads and polishing pad holders with two sizes, 150mm and 90mm, will be used in this video, and of course a can holder which will make the job easier for us, and some wet dry sandpaper that we will use from 400 grit up to 2000 grit, and I have here conductive shield bend that we will bend the cavities inside them. And thanks guys for this nice t-shirt. I added some black dye just to make the grain pop out in this quilted maple top, so I have a much better looking grain, and I will start now with the finish. So the first step would be the premiere, or filling the pores in the wood. You can use either a solid wood filler or you can use this premiere. My premiere is my choice and I go every time with premiere. I just cover this black lines that I did with the dye around the body, and then I can go on and start spraying the whole body. Here you can see me covering every and each area that I don't want to get a premiere over it, and start with my handmade guitar body holder. I just made this in a local shop here in the town and they made it for me. It didn't cost me anything. It holds the body and it helps a lot when it comes to guitar or body bending. Now, if you are planning to do this bending job in your workshop, so I advise you to cover everything so you don't get colors all over the place and you don't have to clean your tools later on. I use an old boiler to warm up some water, just to put my can and then wait to 10 minutes to warm up the can, and then you have much more pressure from the extended air inside the bottle from the warm temperature, and then I can mix it very well for 2 minutes, put the hand on the can, and you have much more nice feeling and will make the job easier for you. Now, wearing special clothes is something optional, up to you, but I don't want to mess with my clothes, and wearing a mask, it's something that you should take and consider. Now, when you are spraying, you start from outside, you finish outside, you never start from the middle or from the beginning of the guitar body or the object that you are spraying. Now for the very first coat, I separated to two parts. The first part just giving a very fine layer on the back, and then going to the sides doing also fine layer, and then come back to the back do a thick layer, and then again to the sides we do the same. So when you finish, you do look at the grain, you start looking how the pores in the grain are start getting filled out, but that's of course not even close from enough to have a very flat surface. So I will let the body to dry enough for 1 hour, and then I'm gonna come back and do a second coat. You can do it even after 30 minutes, but I just like to be extra sure about that. Here I'm doing the first Premiere coat on the neck also, to have it also flat and something to accept the color later on when I do bend the color over the neck and the body. Here you can see the fine result of the tight grain compared to the open grain ash wood, which is very open, so you need to have several coats to fill out all the pores in the grain. So the second Premiere coat is much more thicker. Here you can see in closer look how the grains start to get filled, but you can see also that we are spraying mint not just in the pores of the wood, but also on the surface. So we need to level this up, and then we get this at the same level, so we don't see at the end any grain at all. If you are seeing any grain or direction of the grain of the wood over the Premiere, this means that you are not finished. So here I'm using my orbital sander just to do a 240 grade sanding to the surface to get everything level, and you can see here in a closer look how the grain will looks like whenever you are finished. This should look like something like this. You have an open grain, you can see the bare wood at some levels, and you can see how the pores and the grain got filled out, and then you can continue with another coat. So the number of coats that you're gonna need always depends on the kind of the wood that you have, and also of course on the piece of wood itself. So if you have a plank with very open grain wood, you're gonna need more than 3 coats, and if you have a plank that has a tight grain like maple, you're gonna need just 1 or 2 coats maximum. So this case it was almost 4 coats, and that was enough for me. I just cut everything flat. Here you can see how nice the surface is, but even after the third coat you can still see the grain, which I will show you in a minute. Here you can see what I mean by open grain wood and tight grain wood like maple. Here you can see that even after a third coat and sanding between coat, I can still see the wood grain direction, and this we need to get it dead flat until you will not be able to see anything again. Even if you sand until the bare wood, that's not a problem. You should get everything flat with the pores of the wood, and that's exactly what you want when you apply the color. So now I am doing my fourth coat after fine sanding the neck. And just a quick note, I didn't like the way that this hand was designed, so I'm gonna use another one. Just I got it from the internet for €2, and this has a much better grip, and of course the opening of the holes is way more bigger than the one that I used. So I'm gonna work with this in the rest of this video. Now doing the first coat, which is the last coat that I will do to cover and get this body finished with the Premiere. Sometimes I do, as I said, only 3 coats, but in this case I had to do 4 coats, and this coat should be thick enough to give it a wet sanding before applying the color. Here you can see how nice the surface is, and I have almost everything flat, but you can even after the first coat still see the wood grain, so you have to do a flat wet sanding with 400 grit sanding paper and 800 grit, and then we can move on to the color. So here I'm just using a warm water with some soap in it, and I'm using 400 and 800 grit. If you want to use just 400, that would be fine, but just to have a better result when you are applying the colors, that would be better to use the 800 grit. Now I'm using this small sanding blocks with its flat surface that I cut it from a bigger sanding blocks. You can use other things, but never use a hard material. Just use a normal soft material. Nothing wrong about being a little bit hard, that's okay. And just use a circular moves until you get flat surface. While you are sanding, you should check from time to time how your sanding is going on. You can see me removing the water, checking how the area that I already sanded looks like compared to the area that I didn't sand it, and again doing the same for the neck. I normally do the neck with 800 grit because of the maple, and I start with sanding with 400 grit for the body because of the swamp ash wood. You know you are good to go when you see that the whole surface you cannot tell by looking that this is wood or not, and that's what you want to get. So I choose here to do a desert sand color. They have a big collection, you can do whatever you want, but the same application will be applied. Now we don't do the body first, we do the size and then moving on to the body to do the code. The first code will be again a very light code just to give the Premiere something to stick the paint on it, and then do a thicker code to cover all the area, and then it's sanding with 800 grit, moving on and doing again another code, sanding with 800 grit and doing a third code, and you are good to go to do the glossy finish. If you watch very carefully, you can see me that I'm starting outside, finishing outside with spraying. I never start from the beginning or the middle of the body. This will give you a very nice surface and will prevent any running issues over the body from the spraying. So after spraying the first coat of the color, you can just wait 24 hours, do a wet sanding with 800 grit, again do again a second coat, and then the third coat you don't need to sand it. It should be very smooth if you did everything right how I explained. As you can see in the picture how this is smooth surface, and I can start applying my first glossy coat and then removing all the tape from the side to start dyeing the top, and then I can finish up with two other coat of glossy finish and then wet sanding and polishing, which will come later in a minute. After applying the first glossy coat, I got a very nice and smooth surface, as my first surface before applying the glossy finish was also smooth, so it will just land up on the same surface. So you can see how glossy is it. I can see the shadow of my hands on the reflections, and I will remove now the body and removing all the type from the sides very carefully to start dyeing the top. Dyeing a guitar body needs a separated video. I don't want to make this looks complicated, but it really need to be explained step by step and to have all the steps right, and you don't mess up your whole painting process and then you have to redo almost everything from the beginning. I use some water or alcohol to control the concentrations of the color in the wood dye. You can use the same also, the water or alcohol, both they work great, but my advice to you guys again with another tip, that always buy your dye from the same company that you will buy your finish from. In my case, a Nitrolac, then I use a Nitrolac dye, then I have well designed product that was designed and made to work probably together without facing any issue at the end of my project. Another tip to separate your dyeing process in two steps. If it's complicated like mine, I do this on two steps. After applying some colors, I let the body rest and then I do the matching headstock dyeing, and then I do the conductive shell bend until the whole body and the surface of the top will get dry, and then I can do the rest of the dyeing after the conductive shield almost dried, and then I do another coat of the conductive shield bend. And what I like about Nitrolac that you can order all your stuff that you gonna need for your finish process from the same source, so you don't have to pay for shipment 3-4 times, and you don't have to wait so long. Here you can see me applying a part of my logo, which is a water slide logo that I explained in other video how I apply it step by step, and I will let also the link down below in the description box. If you want to order your water slide logo, then you have it in the description box. Here I'm removing the tape again from the neck so I can install the side dots, and I make sure that my drill bit is 90 degrees to the neck, and then start using some functions and features from my D23 Pro to control the depths with 2mm only. And with the help of Star Bond, I can ensure that the dots will stay in their places. I use the thin version, and after that I just sand it very lightly and start applying the first glossy finish coat. Here you can see me again starting from outside, finishing outside, and doing the first light coat, and the second, the third, the fourth coat could be thicker than that. And of course, sanding between coats with 800 grit is always a win. This will give you a very nice and smooth surface and will make the job later on easier for you with the wet sanding. Now, from the day that you do your last coat, you should wait at least 15 days to let the finish cure before doing the wet sanding or the polishing. So now I have waited almost 21 days, and I have now the finish fully cured. I can start wet sanding with 800 grit. Sometimes I start also with 1000, but this depends on the end result that you have. My advice to you guys to start with 800 grit, but just lightly, very gently scratching the surface with some water and soap, which will make the job easier. And you have to do it with circular movements, and then check this every time after removing the water. If there is any reflective like this area here and another area there beside the backup, this means that this didn't get sanded, and you have to do it until it's fully sanded with 800 grit. You repeat that with 1200 or 1500 grit, and again with 2000, and then you can start polishing. I did the same and the exact same thing on the back. Here you can see that there is no shiny surface anymore. Everything is dead flat, and it has like a semi finish on it. You can now do that the same on the neck, but with the neck I started with 1000 grit because it's much more finer and it doesn't need to be flattened like the body. Here you can see how the sheen looks like and the reflection of the light. And finally we can go through each step of the fine polishing of the finish. Here we have the bats holder, and we have two kinds of foam bats. This is the fine one and this is the hard. Here you can see side to side in comparison how this looks like, which much more finer and thicker, and we can hold it just by sticking this to the bat holder. Here we have the smaller bats with smaller diameter, just to reach tighter areas or something maybe small like a cavity cover. Here we can see what the surface looks like before doing any polishing, and we will see in a minute after the cut polishing and the fine polishing. So we'll see it in 3 stages, how the surface will look like and how the finish will look like at the end. Here I'm using my D23 Pro from Optimum to use it as a polishing machine. Whatever you want to use, you are free to do it, but don't use any RPM that's faster than 1000. Here I'm using those two compounds. You can buy any compounds that you want. Here this is the cut one, which is the blue, and after that we will do the fine one. I will try to spread this all over the surface with my hand before turning on the machine, and then I can be sure that I have all over the surface compound, and I won't do a fine polishing without having compound in some areas. Here you can see how shiny the surface converted in just 1 minute of polishing, trying to do all the corners, the back and the sides, and never stay in one place, because if you did that you will warm up your finish and everything will get very messy and you have to start from the beginning. Here you can see me how I'm cut polishing the sides very fine and never stay in one place, doing the same for the neck, and then we can move on to the fine polishing. Here is a quick shot of the body surface. You can see that even without doing the fine polishing, I'm still getting a very shiny surface, but we will get it and move it to the next level and do the fine polishing, which is contain a powder with over 17,000 grit, and this will give the surface a very fine looking, and you will have a professional product at the end, and we will see this in a minute. Here you can see the surface after fine polishing. You're gonna see here and there some fingerprints, but those has nothing to do with the finish. I'm just showing you how shiny the finish is. You can see the whole sides, how smooth the transitions between the solid color and the top, and that's what you want at the end. Now, to spot any imperfections in the wood finish, you should have a good light source or do this under the sun. Here you can see how nice the neck is, the finish, but you can see here that I have some deep scratches from dropping the neck on the floor of my workshop for the first time in my life. So you are not lucky, guys, but I will do the third and the last part next time with installing some Shala golden hardware. You can check the link in the description box also for Nitro-like products. You can order now your products and do your own finish and follow this kit video step by step. And until this point, to reach the end of this build, thank you all for watching, and don't forget to subscribe like if you want to. If you dislike it, just dislike it, and please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I always post something that I don't post on YouTube, so you can see it first, and I will catch you in the next time, and until then, peace.